about Tainan and the Rite of Passage. That was a lovely exhibition. Thank you very much. I'm Reynold Verret. I come from the city of New Orleans in Louisiana, from a university called Xavier University of Louisiana. I'm the president, and I was a teacher. I'm a scientist myself, biochemist, and somewhere along the way I became a president. And I can say when I was your age, even when I was in my 30s, I did not expect to be a president. I wanted to do other things. But life is like that. I became a president. It's good to be here with you. We are beginning a good partnership between the city of Tainan and the city of New Orleans. 2 weeks ago, our mayor, Latoya Cantrell, signed a sister city agreement with the city of Tainan. And your vice mayor, we saw him 2 days ago. He signed the agreement as well. The city of Tainan will be working together. And those are two cities that are very similar. New Orleans celebrated its 350th anniversary 5 years ago. Tainan, I believe, is celebrating its 400th in 2 years. So we are very similar cities. New Orleans is a city where many people come together. It's also a city that loves food, where food is sacred. I believe Tainan is also a city where food is sacred as well. So they are very similar cities. And New Orleans is a city where people enjoy life. There's a great joy of life. And my experience of Tainan is that it's a city where there's a great joy of life. This morning I saw the celebration of the anniversary of NKCU, where students, teachers were enjoying themselves, even doing silly things in order to say happy birthday to the university. I think New Orleans can do the same thing. Thank you. Let me tell you about Xavier University. The city of New Orleans is a city on the end of the Mississippi River that begins the north of the United States and ends in the Gulf of Mexico. And the city of New Orleans, before the Europeans came, was inhabited by the Native Americans who lived in the city of New Orleans. And that city, there were large communities and cities. In fact, it was they who showed the Europeans how to actually live in that land. And there were many people who came in, and the early years of the city of New Orleans, both Europeans and in Louisiana, which is, the city of New Orleans is right near the Gulf, and very open to weather, like hurricanes, as you see typhoons here. And that city is at a very low level on the ocean, therefore open to the river coming in from time to time. And one person called it the improbable city, because it should not be here. But there was one piece of high ground, which is called the French Quarter. The high ground is where the city was situated. New Orleans was French. This large piece of land was French. And after the revolution in Haiti, Haiti is the island in the Gulf of Mexico, the first island, the first nation where slaves revolted and created a free republic. That caused Napoleon to no longer desire keeping the land. And Napoleon, who was the emperor of France, the great conqueror who attacked and went all the way to Russia and tried to conquer the world. Napoleon's goal was that from his Louisiana purchase, he wanted to conquer this part. But when he lost Haiti, which was the seat of his power, he sold Louisiana to the Americans. So that's how Louisiana becomes part of the United States. And that purchase, if you think about it, is about a third of what is the United States. But New Orleans is this city at the end of the Mississippi River because all the traffic and the change and the food, shipping of boats coming down the Mississippi River into other countries comes down the Mississippi to New Orleans. It's the end of the Mississippi River. That's why it's so important. Now, the population of New Orleans, majority of it's a city of many people. It was French, it was Spanish at one time. It was so that the Americans came into New Orleans, large numbers of slaves, and free people. Let me go back to an important piece of history. When the revolution occurred in Haiti, many people came from Haiti because the French government was in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Many people come from Haiti into New Orleans. By 1810, half the population of New Orleans is from Haiti. So many of the customs of New Orleans come from the Caribbean, including the food. But also, the majority of the population at the time of New Orleans are descendants of slaves, African Americans. But also, there are many ethnicities in New Orleans, but also where these people come from. Some of the people come from Latin America, Mexico, there are Italians. Of course, there were the French. There are many people from many places. And New Orleans has one type of food called the gumbo, which is a soup. The gumbo is a soup that includes many seafoods, vegetables, but also okra, and it's a mixture of many things. So New Orleans used the gumbo to say that the city is a gumbo. So a mixture of many flavors that come together to make these people, and these people intermarry, they make new people, and they also change the food. So this mixture of people made in New Orleans. And New Orleans, because of that, has created a legacy of art and music that is iconic in the United States. One of the important pieces of New Orleans that some of you may know of is the Carnival wine grove. And you also know the music of New Orleans that is known as jazz. Louis Armstrong is not of your generation, not my generation either. It's a little older. But jazz was the music that was created in the meeting of these many cultures in New Orleans that has become international and begins in New Orleans. Louis Armstrong, and if you know his music, is one of the early masters, but also the great trumpeter Wynton Marsalis. His father was Ellis Marsalis. They come from New Orleans more recently. But there's a continuing evolution of music and new music that comes out of New Orleans. There's another musical form in America called the blues. The blues also evolved in New Orleans from the countercultures and spread from the United States. So many things occurred from that mix of cultures, but also things that came from Latin America, from Mexico, Zydeco. Cultures met New Orleans and created new music. And it was that encounter of cultures that is the gumbo that is New Orleans. There was a clip of music that I don't know. Now, let me speak of my university, which is now in partnership with NKCU. Xavier University of Louisiana. At the time, you think of 1865 in America, there was a great civil war. That the civil war was so great, if you think about it, that more Americans died in the Civil War than died in the First and Second World War. Brother killing brother over the question of whether it was right to own another person. That was the battle. That was resolved in the Civil War, through blood. When the slaves were free, one of the larger questions for many of the free slaves was education. There's a man called Richard Wright, who established a university in Georgia, and one his description of walking to a small college for 3 days to get educated. People come to get education. One of the things that was founded in New Orleans is this institution called Xavier University of Louisiana. It was founded by, and it has an interesting mission. The mission I would use, it's not on the slide, but it was founded by what we call St. Catherine Drexel, who was a Catholic saint, by the way. She became a Catholic saint in the year 2000. But when Catherine Drexel established the university was founded with one mission. It was to contribute to the more just and humane society. It was about how does one serve to make a society that was not perfect, better. You can do that better. And what she did do, her story is peculiar because she was the daughter of the richest man in the world at the time. She was the daughter of a man called Francis Drexel, who was a banker in Philadelphia. And the one thing, they were very religious. And at one time, after her father died, she visits Rome, and she had traveled the country and seen the situation of the Native Americans, the people are often called the Indians, the Native, or not Indian, or Native American, the indigenous peoples. And also she read about the situation of the descendants of slaves. And she asked whether Rome should send teachers. And one answer that she received from the Pope was, "My daughter, why don't you do it yourself?" Which was difficult for her to hear. Not long later, she became a Christian nun and established an order of sisters who were dedicated to one mission: educate the Native Americans, to create schools for Native Americans and for blacks. She created one university. Firstly, to educate teachers, but also then it became a university in the early 1990s. That was Xavier. Catherine Drexel used her entire fortune to establish schools in the Navajo countries, in the southern states, and she established one university in New Orleans that became a school that educates not only doctors, lawyers, it educates the largest number of African Americans of many schools who go on to get PhDs in the sciences. That school has become a school of high expectations for students, even though it understood that not every student comes prepared, but when they leave, they have to be prepared. That continual education has been the one gift that she's given that continues to give. No, it won't do that. What I would say is that at Xavier, you have students of all ethnicities. For example, the largest group of students are descendants of African Americans from throughout the world, but also a very large number of students who are the children of the Vietnamese boat people who came to the United States and settled. We've got roughly 8% of our population are the children of Vietnamese. We have students from throughout the country, 39 states, and also from many countries. What happens at Xavier is that we educate scientists, but also we educate students in the arts and also in humanities who ask the question about the major policy questions. And education for us is not something that we do for ourselves or the individual students. It's about what the students do when they leave for other people in their communities. And one of the things that students at Xavier understand is that when they learn things in class, nothing of that has any meaning until they leave university to put to use as teachers, lawyers, scientists, artists, musicians, whatever they do. But one of the important pieces that we have been developing for some years is educating students to know other parts of the world. We can be very parochial, we can know our own region, but we expose students to other parts of the world. A number of students have been learning Mandarin. And one of our desires in partnering with NKC and with the city of Tainan is to increase the knowledge of our students of other languages and other cultures. For one reason, it is not only that you understand other cultures, but it's also that in learning other languages, you can see the world in a much broader way. I was speaking to my friends at lunch, and I speak several languages. I should mention that I was born in Haiti as a political refugee. I came to the United States as a small child. I speak several languages. One thing that I do know, and that you may know as well, when you speak English or another language, is that you think and see the world in a slightly different way than you would see in your own language. That words have subtly different meanings in different languages, and as you use the language, you learn more. And that also, there are certain things that you can express in certain languages that you would not fully express in the other language. I will use an example that you may understand. Because how many of you speak Taiwanese? How many of you speak Taiwanese? I thought I was in Taiwan. Oh, I am in Taiwan. How many of you speak Mandarin? Are they the same? Are they the same language? They're not. I use the example of language like French. I can speak with my mother in French. If I speak to my mother in English, my mother speaks English very well. She spoke English very well. But when I spoke to I could not speak to my mother in English. It's unnatural. If I speak to my mother in English, it's almost as if I was being disrespectful and permanent. It just was not natural. Because there are certain languages with which I communicate with my daughter. There's another language I communicate with my brothers and sisters. And the languages feel differently. I see the world differently in different languages. To speak up, and I learned some Spanish when I was older. I speak the fourth language, Creole, which is a different language that's over Haiti as well. Each of those languages serves a different purpose. But you see the world much more differently by speaking different languages. It is true that we can communicate and share information, but the language really matters. So our students need to understand to speak other languages and to discover other things. To see that things mean the world can mean other. There are many ways of communicating, and those communications have subtle differences. So it is important for us to do that. But it's also important for us to understand cultures for the broad reason, economics, jobs, all that's important. But understanding human beings in different eyes is probably the most important part of speaking another language. For example, in English, like Mandarin, many words do not have gender. In French, a table is feminine. In Spanish, a table is feminine. In German, a bridge is feminine. In French, a bridge is masculine. If you ask a French person to describe a bridge, he says the bridge is very strong, very robust. You ask a German to describe a bridge, very elegant. It's lovely. Why? Language. So what I see as in listening to you present in English is that you've opened a window to yourself that was not open. And I want my students to be opening a window to themselves that is not opened as well, by learning Mandarin. And some of them learn Taiwanese when they come here as well. And that is a good thing because we are passing the world on to you. We are leaving, and we are passing it on to you, so that you can pass it to someone else. And so what I saw today was a very joyful thing. And I would like my students to be able to engage with that, to come here, and to become friends, and to engage with you as well. Thank you for working.